welcome to this afternoon's discussion. I'm Jo, I'm editor of HR Magazine, and today we'll be talking about attracting and retaining talent in the age of AI. With me, I have Andy, Vicky, and Francesco, who are going to share their experiences with us this afternoon. So first of all, I think it's good always to get a business perspective on how AI is impacting individual businesses. So Francesco, I'll start with you. How is AI impacting recruitment and retention at Vodafone?
Yeah, so I can give you an answer in 3 points. So like if you look at candidates, it's increasing candidate experience. This is the data we have. Like we measure NPS on candidates experience from minus 15 2 years ago to plus 45 today. It's increasing, let's say, the effectiveness. We work at Vodafone, like we halved the cost per hire from £1,500 to almost £800. And it halved the time per hire, right, from 90-something days to 40 days. So the organizational point of view is pretty good. From the recruiting team point of view, I'd say they have better jobs, so they're happier. That's what we see, and we measure that as well. But clearly, we have less of them. So AI made their job more, let's say, productive. Hence, you can do the same work with less recruiters. So that's what I would say. Like, if I look at data, what's our experience on the implementation of AI?
Okay, so you're actually seeing, because there's a lot of fear and anxiety around job loss and AI, have you seen that at Vodafone? You said that there's less recruiters.
Yeah, I mean, there is an increase in productivity which drives clearly like opportunities for efficiency. We tend to look at that as an opportunity, to be honest, because we really believe it is. So actually AI helps you in doing something which I think is quite critical these days, which is redeploying people. Because when you get to the depth of what type of skills you need and what type of skills are available in your organization, you can actually deal with a lot of the consequences of automation by redeploying people, reskilling them, and helping them to find new jobs. But of course, artificial intelligence is an opportunity to make teams more effective, more productive, hence to do the same things with less people, let's say.
And at IBM, have you seen a similar pattern? Oh, IBM?
Ubisoft.
Sorry.
Still in tech.
Sorry.
It's slightly different, I would say, from what Francesco shared, because for us, yes, definitely AI has been transforming the role of recruiters. It's made them faster, more productive, but we haven't seen having less recruiters because of AI. I think recruiters have more exciting roles now because they're not doing the parts of the sourcing, the reading 1,000 CVs. Now they're focusing on coaching hiring managers and being talent advisors. I think Eva, I don't know where Eva is, but I think Eva was saying like for they moved to become talent advisors, and I think it's the same for Ubisoft. They're not losing their jobs. Their jobs are just changing.
Vicky?
Yeah, ours crosses a couple of different areas, and I think one of the numbers that Atosh put up earlier was a 75% internal placement. As a professional services company, that's what we're really driving for, because we have a lot of churn in our organization, so we're looking for that internal placement. And AI has been part of our world. We're just figuring out how to implement it the best way. It has been challenging. It is the opportunity, because we're also transforming internally. We used to just fill jobs. Now we want to build careers. And in order to build careers, you have to open up that next opportunity. And Eightfold is helping us do that through that internal placement module. It's actually very informative for us, because now with our jobs, we can reach out to candidates. It becomes a little bit more of a push instead of a pull. Because what we had internally was a lot of, I want to move, I don't know what's available, and I don't know where to go. But we're seeing with Eightfold, people are getting opportunities put in front of us, so much so that our internal placement and recruiters are going, whoa, a little bit too much work for us, but that's okay, we'll get them used to it.
So would you say that AI is empowering workers rather than
It is. It's empowering, but I think you've talked about it a little bit. There's a little fear around everybody in AI. Do you have too much information on me? How do you need to do it? So what we're trying to do through some of our change management, you heard that mentioned earlier, change management is key around this, is addressing and trying to mitigate those fears. understand what they are, and then work through how to address those so that the fear doesn't completely go away, but you've mitigated it, and you understand what the fears are so that you can put the right guardrails in to protect it.
If I could maybe add, the level of fear depends on where you are in the
Okay.
organization. Because
Absolutely.
for every employee, AI is presenting a huge opportunity to, be in the driver's seat, where AI can help you find your next opportunity, can help you find your mentor, networking. So that's great. But then you move to managers and people managers, and I heard a lot of the previous speakers talk about that. Huge fears, because I'm going to be losing my talents, I'm going to have to rebuild my team. So there is a lot of fear. And then, of course, when you move to HR and recruiters, there is a bit of, we don't know what to expect. It could be good, but it could also cost me my job. So I think in the change management, we have to be very surgical in what level of change management we do where, and where do we spend our energy on.
And do you think, oh, sorry, Vicky.
No, I was just going to say on the change management, to help with some of that, you bring in some of those users, right? You bring in your managers and say, what are you afraid of? And let them help build that change management program. Because then they're hearing from their peers. They're not hearing from a corporate function saying you must or you will do this, but you bring in some of those users, whether it's the employee base, whether it's the manager base, whether it's the recruiters or your internal placement, or your security office, because that was the other one that we're still working through on AI, because as many of you know, there's a lot of concern from the security side. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Absolutely. And when we're looking at both attracting and retaining talent, of course, diversity is a key player in that. And we've touched on diversity a little bit already, but I would like to have a closer inspection on exactly, can we trust AI to create that diversity? We know we hear about biases being interpreted from humans and put into the machines, etc. And as we know, we don't live in a perfect world, and there is, unfortunately, some lack of inclusivity in some organizations, and that can be interpreted as well. Like, how are your employees, how are you feeling about diversity in the AI sector?
Look, I think at the end of the day, still AI is as good as you make it. So I think you have to put a really conscious effort in driving the outcomes that you want to drive. What we have seen, again, I like to look at data because otherwise it's all about opinions. But if I tell you two things, one is, since we have implemented AI in a decent way, we have increased the percentage of hire of senior people, let's say, from basic managerial levels up by 42%, and that's in 18 months. And the other thing is we found out that women learn more than men. Now, I'm not sure what does this mean yet, but if you look at our learning hours, so men travel on an average of 18 to 19 learning hours per year. Women travel at a number of learning hours which is 29, 30 per year. So again, artificial intelligence and data give you a lot of opportunities to reflect on how you build an inclusive place, but that has to be your own, let's say, objective and your own, let's say, steer. On the change thing and the fear for AI, I get all the discussions, in these HR debates and so on. I'd say that at some point we will have to accept that our own people in our organizations are also adults and live their own lives autonomously, deal with AI every day, from when they call an Uber to when they go on Instagram. So lots of the conversations we're having in organizations seem to be a little bit like, either we teach you, dear employee, how AI should work, don't worry, it's going to be fine, or it's going to be terrible, you're going to lose your job. That's not the experience they live every day in their own private lives. And so I'd say I trust, in my case, Vodafone employees to kind of have an adult conversation with me on that. So, and I think if you start from that trust, then of course you can also have difficult conversations with them, because it's life, it's not just corporate life.
Yeah, to follow up with that, Francisco, it's here. We have no choice, it's here. So it's how do you bring your populations along with you? And I think it's the conversations and change, because AI is not going away. I don't know if anybody's still in a box and think that it is, but AI is here to stay, so we've got to figure out how to adapt it and make sure it works within our parameters, because we each have different construct that we have to work in. So, and I know this is getting off topic a little bit, and I'm sorry about that, Joe. But it's really important because a lot of us are going through those struggles right now in our organization. And I think once you all accept it's here, it's then what is your plan to bring it in and introduce it into your organization?
Okay, thank you. And how does AI impact Ubisoft's D&I efforts? I got it right that time.
Well, I think we have to keep in mind that AI is opening up opportunities for a lot of people that typically would not put their hand up.
Okay.
By suggesting opportunities for in tech for women based on skills. And this is where it's actually on both sides. On one hand, you have candidates who would typically not put their hand up because there is, maybe a bit of imposter syndrome. There is a bit of, I don't think I have what it takes. And then AI is democratizing that by coming and suggesting to you that actually, no, you can. And that obviously make it easier when you have something telling you that you can apply. So there is a bit of that. But there is also on the other side of the coin, which is on the manager's side, you are getting the best matches based on skills and not on who you know and who you networked with and who you started at the company with 10 years ago. And that's helping diversity a lot because we're having diversity of candidates, but we're also having hiring managers seeing more diversity in their pipeline. So on both sides, I think it helps support the diversity effort. And that's something that we're very happy about. And I think, when we talk about diversity and AI, a lot of people go back to Amazon like 5, 6, or 7 years ago where there was this whole story of Amazon always offering the same candidates to their managers and there was zero diversity. It was like the same universities, same gender, same ethnicity. But AI has evolved so much since 7 years ago. And as Vicky was saying, it is what you make of it. There's a lot of learning that's happening. So.
And are you still seeing progress within the learning within AI? Is it better now than it was when you first implemented the technology?
Well, I would say yes. And I think what I've told people too is the introduction of AI actually removes the ability to be, not diverse because AI is agnostic. So if you set your AI up structure correctly, and some of the ways we've done it is the first pass of candidate matching that we present to anybody excludes any kind of gender reference or name. So you're getting a slate of candidates totally based on skills. And do you know how much more defensible that is when you have a claim of diversity? I was, discriminated against. Well, here is how we started the slate. Now, that doesn't mean you don't have to do some manager training along the way, but when they're presented with skills, they're making much better choices because they're really looking at the matches for the jobs that they're trying to fill. And to your point, Joe, there's no names, there's no, oh, here's my buddy, hire that person, right? So AI actually helps you remove that bias in the technology.
And what are the ethical considerations HR should consider when introducing technology or new iteration of the technology?
And that's the scary part. That again goes to some of that fear is in the audience, right? There are risks, right? Because of the fact that you are putting in AI and machine learning. So you do have to have some oversight. What are the parameters? I think Francisco talked about it. What is it you want your organization to do? Because you have to train the AI. So what are you setting the AI up with? And that doesn't mean it's a once and done. For our organization, it's a constant review to make sure it's learning the way we want to learn it. I think Atosh had talked about his 6-year-old, right? He just didn't put his 6-year-old in front of the sink and say, do dishes. Right? You have to teach along the way how you want the dishes done, how you handle glassware versus silverware or something like that. So you still have to teach your AI. You don't want it to be totally unchecked.
And Francesco, what did you teach your AI at Vodafone?
No, look, for us, it's get the clarity on, at the end of the day, there are 250 things that you can get AI to do, right? So I think it's very important to focus on the top 3. For us, in the last 1.5 years, the top 3 were, number 1, helping us to increase diversity. So that was a big thing for us, as probably most of the technology companies. The second part was getting a better, let's say, experience. And when I say experience, productivity, effectiveness for recruiters, so make it that easier. And the third part was get a better experience for candidates, so increase this candidate NPS, which was embarrassing, -15 and so on. So these were the three things. Then the rest, to be honest, it's a little bit optional at this stage. I'd say that in the implementation of AI, I mean, you really need to pull all the muscles in the organization which work around privacy and legal requirements and so on and so forth to make sure that you do the right thing. So I'm not an expert, but I have teams of experts in my organization, and I'm really, my team is here, as painful as these conversations can be, but we go through all these conversations and we really don't deviate, because I think with these topics it's very important to make clear on what is possible and what is not possible. And what is not possible, you don't even engage. You only work on the area on what is legally and possible and organizationally acceptable.
And privacy's come up quite a bit. Is this something that you considered within your own organization? Have you heard employees' concerns about how their data is being used?
Oh, definitely. I think as a gaming organization, privacy is one of our utmost considerations, whether it's gamers' data privacy or our employees' data privacy. And our employees, when we started this, were quite vocal about how is my data going to be used, who's going to have access to it, is my manager going to know, is it shared, is it public? So obviously these are all considerations that employees ask. But if you have the right partner and if you have the right setup and if you make sure that your configurations are set up in the right way, then it wouldn't be any different than you using any other system like LinkedIn or Instagram or even the HRIS that many companies have. If you have the same safeguards in place as Aisha was saying this morning, it should be okay.
And why do you think that there's a little bit potentially more distrust with giving companies data than it is? People are quite happy to fill in their Instagram forms, LinkedIn, Uber, put in their data without consideration, whereas when it comes to the workplace, everyone kind of, whoa, why are you asking me these questions?
Well, put simply, because it's new.
Yeah.
It's new. We haven't had AI in HR for 20 years. A lot of employees, their first reaction is, well, I don't know what this is, so maybe I shouldn't like it. And then you get to know it and you get to see the impact. We have to keep in mind that the reason why we're doing this is for our people. And if we can manage, as part of the change management and the educational piece, to educate on how does this benefit you as an employee, then 90% of the job is done. But it's new. It's there. This apprehension comes from novelty.
Yeah, definitely. And anxiety we've kind of touched on already, and it's a big question. I'm being a bit facetious by creating a binary, but is it going to reduce or replace jobs? Are we going to be at the job center come Monday morning because AI is taking over, or is it that the HR role is just going to change?
What? Is it me? Or?
You go first.
I don't know if it's going to replace jobs. Some jobs are going to be replaced.
Yeah.
I mean, today I watched this show on Netflix a few days ago with Barack Obama, and he talks about, like horse saddlers. Today we don't have many of them, whereas 100 years ago there were many. So definitely some jobs are not going to be here in 30 or 40 years, and that's part of progress. But I think for most jobs, AI, and this is what we tell our employees, because obviously these are questions that they have, is AI going to do the game design? Is AI going to do the level design or the creative piece of creating the story behind a game? And the answer is no. Like, AI is going to complement your work. It's maybe going to help you with game design or coding, but it's not going to do the job for you.
Can you guarantee that, though?
Well, nothing is guaranteed.
So. You can get it on the record.
But I mean,
where's the disclaimer? No, go ahead.
No, I mean, the best guarantee is that it hasn't happened so far, right, by and large. So if you look at, like you read the predictions of 10 years ago and you look at where we are today, it hasn't happened at the pace that it was predicted 10 years ago. So my theory is that that's not going to happen I cannot guarantee that to you, but if I look at what happened. At the same time, I think if you don't engage your organization, your people in mature conversation on what has to change in order for that, let's say, doing things differently becoming true, then you have a risk, because then you keep doing doing the same things, and people will find themselves a little bit out of date in terms of what they're capable of doing. So I think I feel my job is responsible not to avoid the impact of AI, because that's not my job, or to guarantee that I'm not going to make any job redundant and so on. I think my job is to provide people with solutions, options, skills, even, let's say, leadership in terms of the way they look at things and the way they adapt at change that can make them, let's say, capable of dealing with the changes that are coming. So I think our job is not guarantee jobs, but it's guarantee that people are capable of dealing with the changes that are coming. And if we do that, I think we can say that we are successful. If instead we say, okay, I'm going to protect jobs at Vodafone for the next, 25 years, I'm not sure that's my measure of success.
Yeah. No, and I would agree, and that's why we're changing the conversation, because we're letting people know change is coming, right? Your job today is not going to be the same as it is tomorrow, so help us decide what you want your job to be. So that's where I'm saying, at NTT, we're looking at being more of a career developer. So it's going to say, hey, and I'll use one of ours. We have what we call TA coordinators. They're not quite recruiters, but they do all of that administrative work, right? So your job is going to change. We're not saying it's completely going away, but it's going to change. So what do you want your next role to be? Do you want to be a recruiter? Great, this is how we can help you get some of those skills. Because change is inevitable, and if you explain it to those people that, oh, your job's not going away, it's changing, are you wanting to change with it, or do you want to do something different? Because this is your chance in that Y in the road to make choices. The choices are now up to you. What do you want to do with it? So what our workforce looks like today will not be the same in 3 or 5 or 25 years. So how are you going to change or evolve your career? So that's how we're trying to drive it and let them know change is coming, always, everywhere. How do you want to handle it, and how can we help you as a company handle it? So one of ours was a user experience. How do we engage people more in the technology? Because it goes to that transparency and how to accept it. Let them know it's out there. Don't be afraid to tell them it's coming. Because I've been in the corporate world for a lot of years. And it used to be, in the corporate side, we held everything so tight. Oh, our employees can't handle this.
Yeah.
But to Francisco's point, they're professionals. They're doing their job. Share the information with them. Let them know it's coming. And then they're on the journey with you instead of it happening to them.
And they know about the technology. Everyone in this room
knew
what ChatGPT was, hadn't heard of it in 2018. They know it's happening, and they'll understand. I think it's quite patronizing to think that they won't think it's going to impact them and their businesses. Okay, I'd love to get some questions from the audience at this stage. So does anyone want to start us off? Hopefully we have a mic somewhere around. Here we go. We've got one at the back.
Some of the arguments for using AI in selection assessment are similar to arguments that we might have heard 10, 15 years ago to introduce things like psychometric assessments. As an occupational psychologist, I'm quite interested to know your thoughts about where the marketplace puts assessments, online assessments, alongside AI. And I'm just curious to know your thoughts on that one.
Yeah, well, we use both. So we do have psychometrics. And we have different types of psychometrics depending on the role, depending on seniority, blah, blah, blah. I don't think the answer is psychometrics, as I don't think the answer is AI. I think so I think there was some discussion on, is AI responsible of some of the outcomes, and can the candidate challenge the outcome of an AI response? Blah, blah, blah. I think that's all a kind of a non-relevant argument. I think the decision is, at the end of the day, a human decision, and the responsibility of that decision is a responsibility that a human person can stand behind, both from the legal point of view, but also from, let's say, the management point of view. So we use psychometrics as having more data. I truly believe that the more data you have, the better decisions you make. But then these are all data that you get in order then to take a decision, which is your part, but based on a lot of data, right? What psychometrics also give you is at some point some very good organizational data, I think. Because once you start to build psychometrics at scale, both on your candidates and on your internal applicants and so on and so forth, then you aggregate and you start to say, okay, these are the key things that I see in my candidates list, for example. These are the key things that I see in my internal candidates. These are the most successful ones. These are the least successful ones. And you can start to build, let's say, your own, let's say, you know, initiatives for that. So it's a bit of a complex answer to say, yes, I think there is value to use psychometrics in order to get more data, in order to take your decisions.
Any other questions? We got one at the front here.
Thank you. I have a question which is more specific for gaming industry. So I'm curious to know whether you found some connections and you learned something from the operations of gaming, like using gamification, reinforced learning, and apply it into HR. And if you did, what did you find?
That's a very good question. Well, part of the gaming industry is around what we call monetization, which means keep bringing people back to your games. This is very common when you use mobile games or free-to-play, where you start with something and then you go up in the levels. We started exploring that in our organization when it comes to learning, where you can learn through gamified ways, where you can have test outs in order for you to see if you pass this level or if you go to another level. We see a huge jump in our learnings through some of these initiatives where there is a test out and there is a gamified approach. We definitely did not use the full potential of gamification in HR. It's something that we want to continue doing. But today on the market of HR tech, the gamification of HR has not yet, and maybe where is, Ashu, maybe this is your next idea. So it's not there yet. So there are some companies doing gamification in HR, but it's not at the level that it should be. More and more employees, especially Gen Z, this is what we see in our data, they get engaged and excited with some of these gamified HR modules. Yeah. Sure. Definitely.
Another one just there.
Hi, Evia Rucker from Warner Music Group. So you did mention earlier that you did have some concerns around data privacy. So what safeguards did you have in place in the implementation of the technology, whether it's through process or through just a data integration, to make sure that whatever you had promised your employees was actually true?
Is that for me, Ivy, or anyone?
For any of you.
Vicky, you were talking about your organisation being quite risk-averse anyway, so I think it's
Yeah,
good for you to
we're
pick
a
up this.
highly risk-averse organization, and we're globally deployed. So you name a privacy statute, we probably have to face it somewhere in the world. So there are some ways that we went through this. One, we made sure we had representation across all of those key initiatives. I will also say success factors, here's another plus. We're a success factors house, so we went through a lot of the data privacy security through our success factors implementation. So as we brought in partners, Eightfold being one of them, it's a little easier to sell because of the fact we went through some very stringent requirements around data privacy and protection. And I don't want to be broad about it because there was not a one solution fits all. We have a global broad band that we start with, and then we get very localized as we need to. And as I was telling Joe, we're very risk adverse at our organization, not just because of our employee data, but because of the work we do. We have to provide and protect client data, so we apply that across the board. It takes more time to get something approved in our organization than it does to implement. Anybody wants the story, I can tell you a whole long one.
I think the laughter, we can assume they agree with you in their organisations as well. Have we got, I think we've got time for about one last question, if anyone's got one for the panel. That was a strong hand up over there.
I have a question on attrition, and particularly one-year attrition. Do you see any correlation from like when you adopted Eightfold AI and 1 year later? Like, is attrition lower, higher? Hopefully not higher, but what are your experiences?
I will say for us, again, we're professional services, so we have a lot of rotation, and we usually have a very high rotation and attrition number. I can't give you any numbers because, again, we want a little bit longer leeway to do it. But what I will say is that we have seen a tremendous amount of internal candidates now coming up for an availability, where they weren't before. They didn't know about the job, so now we have it. In fact, I was told by my TA organization not to mention this, but after implementing AI, we saw over, and we're a company globally dispersed of 50,000 employees. When we put AI in and available to our employee base, we had on average at least 1.5 applicants from an internal. So talk about 75,000 internal candidates now became available for our open positions. So I can't promise you that our attrition goes down, but I'm highly confident that it will because we're going to be placing our internal employees. And for all of you, you know what the cost is to bring in somebody new. So if you can deploy somebody who's already in the company,
You're saving.
So.
Short answer is no.
What about you, Andrew?
Well, we, a bit like you, we started the implementation not very long ago, so we don't have data yet, but maybe something for you to think of. In our exit interviews that we have done over the last 24 months, 1 in 2 employees who are leaving Ubisoft were telling us that they were leaving not because of, the typical my manager, my pay, the culture. 1 in 2 were leaving because they did not have the access to opportunities that they wanted. And by implementing Eightfold, we would be solving for that, which is giving people opportunities and putting them in the driver's seat. So I'm hoping it's going to be reducing attrition.
That's consistent, yeah? So it's also reason number 1 for leaving, like 45%.
Yeah. So.
And then do your employees now feel like they are given that opportunity?
Well, those who are part of the first pilots, yes, because they can find opportunities, they can explore the opportunities, they can apply. So it makes it much easier.
And if they're not quite qualified for that role, is there an option for them to upskill? You don't reach this criteria, here's what you need to do to
No, that's
do
the
that?
next step.
Is that the next step? Okay, cool. Well, we'll see you next year and figure out whether that's worked or not.
Count on it.
Yeah. Okay, we're very quickly running out of time. The time has gone red, which is quite stressful, actually. So thank you so much. I know it's a little bit of a slog after lunch to listen, but fortunately we had a super interesting panel, and I'm sure they're all more than happy to chat with you if you have any further questions. So thank you, everyone.